Hi guys, hope everyone is doing well. In today's video, we want to explore the situationship or relationship between Nadine and Jin Young from Singles Inferno Season 2 and why, despite their attraction towards each other, they didn't end up together. They actually recently reunited on Nadine's YouTube channel where she had Jin Young as a guest. And yes, the internet went wild crazy. Throughout the series, we see that Nadine has been the one showing more interest, that she was into him, but the other way around. And honestly, we can see that from the very beginning, and that is as soon as Jin Young comes in. Remember this scene where he's walking in slow motion, flicking his hair? Alright, not really flicking his hair, but you know what I'm saying? Of course, he makes a huge first impression when he wins the battle game, and from that moment we can see Nadine's facial expression. She is impressed, and she said it quite a few times in interviews, but she did find him quite cool coming in. From the beginning, though, we can see that Jin Young has an immediate attraction to Sulki. He picks her for the very first date, and he also said that Sulki is his quote-unquote type on paper. In the YouTube video that Nadine posted, they go through the first date and the reason as to why he did not pick Nadine. And he said this. He said that Nadine actually really did catch his eyes at first, but he thought that she would be taller than him. Alright, so I'm just gonna pause there because I just want to go through the reason why he didn't pick her. We could go through a whole other debate as to whether guys find taller girls more attractive, less attractive, or have no opinion on their height. But I would probably say that on average, I would lean towards thinking that guys prefer short girls so that they can protect them and it doesn't feel as intimidating. So please put down in the comments what you guys think of height and whether that increases or decreases someone else's appeal in a romantic way. So essentially, he just thought that she was taller, and this is why apparently he did not pick her up. But in any case, he definitely had his eyes on Sol Ki, and they go on their first lunch date together. After this first date, we actually see both of them going on separate dates. But even then, Nadine said in an interview that she's hesitating between picking Jin Young or Dong Woo. And in this first date, we see her ending up with Dong Woo. Jin Young goes on to have his date with Soki, and honestly, both of these dates could not have been more different than one another. If we take Dongwoo and Nadine's first date, we can see that they get to know each other. But after the date, they actually don't get any closer in a romantic way. Both of them speak highly of the date, they really do, but they don't really gravitate towards each other in Inferno after that first date. Whereas looking into Jin Young and Sulki's date, they offer us what ends up being the more iconic scene of the season. You know what I'm talking about? That pool scene? And I think it's fair to say that we can actually see both of them getting closer to each other after the date. Despite this situationship with Silky and Jin Young, we can see in the show that Nadine is the one who initiates most of the conversations with him. And she says that she's not really curious about other people despite having been on a date with Dongwoo as well. And so suggesting that there wasn't really anything more between her and Dongwoo on a romantic level. We see that she pulls him again after he goes on to have a date with Ming. She again says but she's quite curious about him. And to be honest, the only sort of hint that we get that Jin Young might be interested in other people than So Ki during the series is when he has this conversation with Nadine. And Jin Young actually admits that he's unsure who to pick and he doesn't know whether it should be someone who makes his heart race, which is So Ki, someone he has fun with, which is Seo John, or someone that he's curious about, which is Nadine. Nadine and Jin Young do end up actually going on a date together. And you know what? Depicting that date, it wasn't really that awkward. They had good vibes, light conversations, but also deep conversations. But I think that it's during the date that he probably made up his mind about who to pick. Here is why I think they might not have ended up together. Firstly, the age gap. Alright, so going into the date, we know that they end up finding out more about one another. They find out about their respective age. They actually have a 5-year age gap, and it's not a huge gap, but at the same time, it's not little. Of course, there are different couples that work out with an age gap or no, and Jin Young actually says that age is not an issue for him, but I kind of think that it is something that they both considered. Second, the long distance. During the date, they also get to learn a little bit more about each other. And one of the main things that we learn is what we do for each of us jobs. And so learning that Nadine is at Harvard, which is an American university, is obviously firstly really impressive, but also far away. And a valid question is how they would make it work on the outside if it were ever to be an item. Thirdly, school and the whole balancing between school and relationship. It's a question that Jin Yong actually asks during the date, and he actually asked that same question again in her YouTube video. And this kind of shows that this is probably one of his concerns. During the series, we notice that Jin Yong has a conversation with Silky where he actually basically says that he would like to meet someone who's already stable. And so the fact that Nadine is still in school, I think is probably one of the concerns that Jin Young had. It's not to say that being in school doesn't mean that you're stable, but it just seems that they are just at different life stages. When Jin Young actually asked this question to Nadine, she replies with a lot of conviction because the question was whether she would be able to balance school and relationship. And I think that her answer makes sense when she said that if she actually meets someone who she really loves and who's worth it, he would understand, but she would also make it work. Anyways, fourth, the language factor. We perhaps cannot hear that Nadine might not be using the correct grammar or vocabulary when she speaks in Korean. I can see throughout the show and through some of the conversations that Nadine has with other contestants that she drops in some English words every now and again. She also said that her American personality is mostly like the true personality compared to the Korean one. And it's not because in Korean she's more quiet or she's more shy, but I think it's just the language barrier which prevents her from being able to fully express herself. So, if we think that communication is key and that is the basic foundation of a good relationship, I think that's probably one of the factors to consider. Even though Jin Young does say that it's like cute, thinking back of all of those factors, like the language factor versus her being at school, doing a long distance relationship, all of those factors would actually impact Nadine and any other boys. So those factors are probably not unique to Jin Young and Nadine solely. And so this last factor is why I think they did not end up together. Okay, so remember that Jin Young was talking about three people that he would be sort of curious, where he wasn't really sure. Someone who makes his heart race, someone he has fun with, or someone he's curious about. And so I think that the reason is that he just followed his heart and went with the person that he had more of a romantic connection with, and that was Seol Ki for him. Anyways, so Jin Young followed his heart, going with Seol Ki, and he stayed true to himself. Anyways, for those who are wondering where they are now, both of them keep blessing us with different videos on their respective YouTube channels. We can see that Jin Young has recently been to Thailand and Nadine has been to Korea on holidays. Will they be an item? Well, who knows? Jin Young actually asks Nadine's mom whether she would accept them two being together. And he also mentions before that he would be open to going to the States to film if the opportunity comes up because of what he's currently doing with his job. So who knows? Listening to both of them on Nadine's last video though shows that they still have great banter together and are both clearly single. What do you guys think about these two? Do you think that they could end up together? Please put down in the comment box below. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video.